Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into this edition, this special Thanksgiving edition of the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Fans First Sports Network, here to bring you the action here. Obviously, not my same setup. I am actually in Saints country right now with my in-laws, where they're already making fun of me and dealing with the fact that I've been critical correctly of their Saints on the Student of the Game podcast. Bing! Well, actually, that was also on my spot on the Jeff Allen podcast. Bing! So, and there's no bell. You got to listen to me voice act again. It's a whole mess, kind of like this franchise. But to help nurse me through it, I have one of your own along with me, like I always do, the man who helps me spread the gospel of the Duval Devout, my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, Big Cat Country. What's going on, champion?
Hey, man, happy Thanksgiving, happy holiday season to you and yours and all of Duval County.
Yeah, see, maybe you can help me with this real quick as an aside. Like, I thought there was a distinction between Happy Thanksgiving and Happy Holidays. I didn't think we dropped the holidays until December, but now everybody's telling me Happy Holidays, and does that include Thanksgiving too? I mean, are we reducing the importance of Thanksgiving that much? I'm just asking.
I'm going to let you know right now, I'm America. I'm Americanized, and I don't know all the holidays. There's way too many for me to keep track of, so I'm just saying Happy Thanksgiving because that's the weekend that we are in, and the holidays is because all of them, because I know there's like 15,000 million, 100,000 holidays out here, and hey, man, I'm making sure I cover everybody. It's out of respect. It's out of love, baby. Hey, whatever you celebrate, you celebrate. And then if that involve all the sex toys and butt plugs, hey, man, do your thing. Have fun. Happy holidays to you and yours and all of y'all nasty freakiness. Let's go.
Okay, I wasn't ready for that reference on the bingo card, but there we go. That's some very interesting Christmas shopping somebody's going to be doing. I was just curious because Thanksgiving's usually its own thing, and then we flip into holidays. But yeah, okay, we can be all inclusive. Even more so than I even would have imagined. Thank you, Travis. So, with all that in mind, let's get into a little bit of action here. And you made a reference last show about how, with it look like Trevor could come back and play here on Sunday,
right,
that he could potentially, I'll air quotes, save Trent or possibly even Doug's job. Now, obviously, the latter, we're talking quite the long shot here, right? But in getting some victories, he could do something to show, see, this roster can work if given enough time, you know, that kind of part there too. But in helping Trent Baalke in that way, he would also be reducing the opportunity for the Travis Hunters to snag their target in the draft. Of course, I refer to Colorado's Travis Hunter. And I know you are out there, those of you members of the Duval Devout who want plenty of Genty, like our good friend who came on last week, Jamal St. Cyr. Bing! He's all about plenty for Genty. He has said as much as well. Though granted there, Jamal, I got to tell you, as we said, I don't think that's a first-round pick. But I think he's in play if somehow he drops to the second and the Jags don't hold on to Travis Etienne for whatever reason. But we're speculating too much on that. How much are you, Travis, concerned not only of the potential saving of Trent Baalke's job, but also moving the target to where it's going to be tougher to be a Travis Hunter in the upcoming draft?
Well, I mean, that's the concern, I think, of everybody, and I'm right along with that. I'm with the rest of the fan base there. Who wants to win games at the end of the season when it doesn't matter? And we all kind of know it doesn't matter. They are literally potentially one loss this upcoming Sunday, and what was it? A loss by Jacksonville and a win by, I believe, two other teams from being mathematically eliminated from the playoff contention. Realistically, that means you're out. I mean, it's for the most part over at that point. Who cares about winning games at the end of the season? This isn't a rollover plan. This stuff doesn't automatically just go into next year and mean you're a winning franchise now. Like, no, man, that's not how this goes. So no one wants these victories when it literally just does not matter as far as the fan base is concerned. Secure the tank, secure the bag, secure the pick, secure the future at least. For the next front office, for the next coaching staff, is for the most part, most fans perspective, I won't say all, because people spent real money, like they work real hours, and they're going to these games and they want to see a victory. They want that crab leg. They want to feel good for that Sunday, and I fully understand, man. But for the most part, most people that are on the future, that's not what we're here for, man. We know what this is. We get it.
Yeah.
The point of the matter is this is not working for the coach. This is not working for the GM. This is not working for their dynamic. We got to figure out a way to get a better process, better people in here, and that involves losing these games. So no, we're not here for these moral victories against the worst teams in the league.
Well,
we're here to try to get better.
It's not necessarily moral victories, but bragging rights or picks is where you're coming from. And especially this weekend when you're playing a team the likes of the Houston Texans, who are in division, kind of a rivalry there, especially considering in recent history, they've ruined Tony Baselli's induction into the Ring of Honor there in Jacksonville, right? I think there's a lot going on. And I think the Titans game might be one where the Duval Devout might be about F them picks already. But to speak to my example, look here in the comments. We already have Dupree Hundo coming in.
Short.
Stroud will come up short. More on that later, Dupree. Kyle's got some little special baked up for that. We'll get to there, okay? But yeah, listen, I see where you're coming from there. But here's where I'm willing to give the Duval Devout that are still wanting to see some of those victories a little bit of slack. The fact that the Jaguars won't be hunting for a quarterback is helpful. Like, they don't have to have the number one pick to go Travis hunting. They could probably get away with it if they're at 2 or 3, perhaps even. And I'm assuming we're talking like the Giants and the Raiders are in that hunt, maybe even the Titans. These are all teams I feel like would draft quarterbacks, and the Jags would still be safe going after Travis Hunter. So there's that to consider, right?
Absolutely. Again, we talked about that one. There's about 5 to 7 realistic possible teams who should heavily be in that quarterback market as far as in the draft, depending on how free agency goes and everything else. So overall, the Jaguars wouldn't necessarily be out, because it doesn't have to be a one. Travis Hunter does not have to be a one, pick 1-1. As far as that piece is concerned. And additionally, even if the Jaguars were to win a few of these games towards the end of this season, there's a lot of wiggle room as far as the remaining team schedule for those top 5 to 7 teams, where realistically the Jaguars could be anywhere from 1 to as far as 10, just depending on one game or strength of schedule, things of that nature. So we might be talking realistically in that 3 to 6 range by the time everything's said and done, even with the Jaguars' easier end of season schedule right now, where they end up landing, and that still might put them in the Travis Hunter's kind of conversation.
Well, yeah, I feel like if they're 6, I have a feeling that you will not be able to hunt for Travis at pick 6. That's kind of what I'm thinking there too.
6,
and from that point, maybe then Bulky does a little of the thing that you and I will both note is the thing he does best, and that's trading back first-round picks to get value. So I'll give him that much credit.
I pray it's not Bulky that's making that move, but sure, yes.
Sure, I get that, but, so, and then, we were talking off air about Johnson as the quarterback. He also, Hef here in the comments mentions Graham. Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I'm not knocking that input, Hef, but I would also tell you I don't know how comfortable any NFL franchise is drafting just a true corner at number 1. The reason why I keep mentioning Travis Hunter is because he is not just a corner. He is not just a receiver. He is an athlete. I would not be surprised if they bring him in also to contribute special teams like he has done with the Buffs, right? So I think that special teams element, and rightly so, is getting kind of overlooked. But ever since Agnew, Jamal Agnew has not been on the team, special teams hasn't looked the same for the Jags. I think Hunter could be an excellent injection into what they got going there as well.
Well, this is also something that we talked about before before we started in today's pre-pod meeting, and it's a conversation I brought up with the guys over at the Big Cat Country staff. few weeks ago, because a big concern about Hunter is not who he is as a player. It's just it's his profile, like his actual physique, his size, and things of that nature. Like he's what 6'1", 185. A lot of people like project him to be that slot receiver role in the NFL, project him to be that slot corner role in the NFL. And I mean, he obviously can put on some weight, just a little bit of weight, and be basically Jalen Ramsey at that point. Like, so there is a little bit of wiggle room in who he is versus who teams project him to be. But
Right.
if you are someone who is a slot receiver, you're not drafting a slot receiver 1-1. You're not drafting a slot receiver in the top 5. You're not drafting a slot corner only top 5, top 10. And that's the conversation, is like, is he going to be what he is in college, in the NFL? Or is this just all hype and we're just we're overdrafting something that is a great, exciting prospect, but is only going to play fill in the blank, partial number of snaps because of that limitation. And that's the concern for a lot of people, and I fully understand it. But hey, man, the hype machine's going, and the dude's exciting. So I get it all, but man, it's a tough conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and Hef mentions here about Hunter being an athlete, but mileage. I would push back on the mileage piece, only that I don't see an NFL franchise using Travis Hunter in the same way that Colorado is. I don't see him averaging over 100 snaps a game. I feel pretty confident that won't happen. But and if any NFL franchise was dumb enough to do that, he'd never last. What I think the better conversation is, that's comparable to what we should be intelligently having about Travis Hunter, is to relate him to a Hines Ward, right? Hines Ward, granted, was not at a big name college like Colorado is in this day and age, but he was a utility guy, Hines Ward, and eventually came in to be a star that did find that single path eventually to being. He was a number 1 receiver. Yeah, he ran longer routes, but he was basically a slot receiver with skills, right? With extra skills. So I feel like maybe that could be the sort of thing, and I'm not saying that Travis Hunter is going to end up being a slot receiver with skills. That's not what I'm saying. But it would be that kind of, he would start out a utility man and then craft into skills or craft into a position with a particular set of skills that whatever franchise owns, to eventually make him a star. Because it's hard for me to believe that with a guy that's that kind of a foundation of an athlete, that he can't be evolved into a great X of whatever position full time, right?
And that's the part that's just sucks, because he's a great athlete, and he's such a high level athlete that you almost feel like you can't pass over that. And you just use the Hines Ward example. When people talk about his mileage and his recovery process and everything else, my mind immediately goes to someone like Derrick Henry, who's, okay. I mean, you're talking mileage. That dude had mileage in high school, and mileage in high school, mileage in college, mileage early in the league, and even today, he is still dogging these dudes because he is just that level of athlete. And there's sometimes you don't want to outthink this thing. You don't want to galaxy brain it just Great because point. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, hey man, the best guy's the best guy. Oh, he's still the best guy? Yeah, he's still the best guy 20 years later. Weird how that worked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think you're swinging to the other side of the pendulum from Hef. It's like I hear where he's coming from. Like, dude could break down tomorrow with all the snaps he's gotten. I get it, but by the same token, maybe he's just that dog, right? It's hard to judge that at this point. Like, listen, how many injuries got Adrian Peterson to drop to where he did, to where the Vikings could draft him? Mm-hmm. And then later on, he gets hurt, has one of the best recoveries in the history of the NFL from that particular knee injury, to where he actually was his poster child, pointing out the new state of the art of the treatment of that knee injury. What was it, an MCL, or did he have more than one of the CLs? I forget at this point. Yeah, the dude's knee was jacked. He was supposed to be done and became a poster child for the medical community at the state of the art of the procedure. So, like, these are things that are just so hard to account for, what makes the draft process hard. And I still, it's hard for me to believe that if the Jags are inside of pick 5, meaning 4 or less, that they don't get Travis Hunter. I'll put it
and
that way.
they can't trade down. That's the kicker. Like,
Right.
I think
Right.
that has to be just top of mind, just because if you're assuming a new leadership staff, if you're assuming that you want offensive line and defensive line talent to be brought in, and there just aren't the top guys, there aren't the prospects that's there in those roles, and you can kind of collect more draft picks for later to kind of build that up. You have to assume that trading down is the top priority. But if you can't, like 2022, and you got to make the pick, then it feels like it's going to be these two guys. If we're talking, probably not talking corner, but it's possible.
Yeah. I mean,
And that changes things a little bit.
all we know for a fact is right now Jacksonville is not trying to endure for yours. That's not a thing. Okay. They're not saying what the heck for Carson Beck. That's not a thing. They're not planning for that Manning kid. That's not what's happening here. Okay. Is there any more you want me to throw out there? I can do it.
Well, let me ask you this question. It's one of the questions that came over from Twitter.
Okay.
It's from the minion who looks like the Thing. Zigzag Goon Squad. If the defense plays like they did versus Minnesota and Trevor is fully healthy, I can see us winning 5 more games. If a 7-10 record gets Balky fired, but Doug stays, how are you feeling?
Kind of good, actually. Granted, I would still want and demand offensive line picks so Doug could have his offensive line that's actually good enough as what his play calling and scheme requires. But, I'll put it this way. I feel like Doug at this point needs to be transitioned just because they need a new voice in that room. That's the only reason. To me, it's not necessarily about coaching prowess. And I think you would agree with that to an extent, having coined the term pencil whip here on this very show. But yeah, that's kind of where I sit, man. I don't know if you agree with that, but.
Well, I'm all team. I mean, this is a weird one, but I am fully team. Best case scenario, if you can only get rid of one of those guys, you get rid of Trent.
Yeah. Let's be clear.
Where I
We
am.
agree on that. Yeah, that's not close.
So if you're not getting rid of both, if you are not getting the clean sweep, which I mean at this point it has to happen. But if it doesn't, and you're not getting the clean sweep, then it's harder to get rid of a GM than it is to get rid of a coach. It just is. GMs will always get 2, 3, whatever the number of head coaching hires of possibilities to get it right, whereas the coach can be gone in a year. So if Doug is going to be going into the last year of his contract, which reportedly he will be in 2025 if he is still here. Right. Meanwhile, Trent's gone, and you hire a new GM. You let the new GM figure out what he's going to do with the coach in the second season. That's very similar to what the Titans did with Rand Carthon. They let Mike Vrabel finish that next season, and then they end up firing him the season after they got a new GM. I don't have a big problem with that. The biggest thing is Doug would have to call plays. We wouldn't be doing this whole Press Taylor thing again all of a sudden. I mean, the owner told you his preference that Doug call plays, and that still didn't happen. And there's also the conversation of whether or not it materially changes anything, whether or not Doug or Press is calling plays because it's Doug's offense, but that piece. So all that to say is, yes, Doug has had a propensity to pencil whip teams, but he's also had this little weird quirk where he's like, well, I just don't want to run that offense anymore. Like it's the same base offense, but he's highlighting different parts of it. He's more highlighting vertical passing game, highlighting running under center, not highlighting the meshes and the crossers and everything else that kind of made them known for what they did in 2022. So it all just feels like a different offense.
Ingram a career year, right?
Right. So it makes it feel like a totally different offense. And it's like, well, what do you do with that? Like somebody galaxy brained this whole thing and tried to make it be something different, and it's just not working. So that's kind of where I am.
What do you think of this comment coming in from Hef? Okay with it. It opens up the team to bringing in Andy Whitell from Pittsburgh. I don't know if you have an opinion on that as an acquisition, but
I don't. I really don't. I mean, yeah, I don't know enough.
It's an interesting thought. We will perhaps we will explore that on the coming episode here on Sunday. We'll have the Duval Dive live, where we're expecting to have you available from Everbank Stadium.
Yes.
And yeah, he's bringing up that they worked together in Philly previously. Of course, DP and Andy is the thought process there.
He wrote with everybody in Philly, man. They had everybody, and then as soon as everybody left, as soon as they all left and did their own thing, it felt like most people just struggled. Everyone struggled without each other. They just had this whole Avenger situation, and then all of a sudden they started failing separately. But together they were great for that magical season.
So one could say that you might be in favor of this end game where they reunite.
End game was stupid, but yes, I got.
Oh no, we're dropping more controversial opinions on the pod. Wow,
they made that thing so much more difficult than they had to make it. But yes, I got you.
Wow, show me somebody who isn't from. Do you even comic book, bro? I mean, I don't either, but that's what the comic book fans would say.
I mean, bro, my cat was named Bruce Wayne. Rest in peace. Like that's
gracious.
That's how we comic book. We got all the comic books and the cartoons
hater. That's what they'll say. You just a DC hater now. That's
fine. I own it. I don't care.
Man, speaking of haters, let's get in a little bit of talk surrounding the Texans, and I have to lead with this. Hate.
Yes.
Hate. Exactly. Where's Charlie Murphy? May he rest in peace. Anyways, listen, man. I've always found it interesting. One of my favorite Texans fans on Twitter is VT. He's the host of the Cover 22 Texans podcast. I was actually on his show when they last played each other. Had a great time. But one thing about him that is ever so slightly frustrating, and granted, he does it mostly because he's a Texans fan, but the absolute outright, speaking of hate spewed in the direction of Trevor Lawrence in the past seasons has been something I'm like, bro, I know you know ball better than this to be criticizing Trevor as if it's his fault. Then in that very same feed that I'm using as an example of many Texans fans who I see out there defending CJ Stroud with the vigor of a mama bear over her cub is just pure delicious irony. Travis, comment please.
I mean, but I've had this exact same conversation with two of my Texans, friends on the socials, and at least one of them openly just admitted it at the end of a conversation. Hey, man, I just don't like y'all. Like, all right, cool. Like, that's okay. That is okay. If you want to just say this is just pure hate, and I hate everything that you are. I hate the way that you talk, the way that you walk, the way that you dress. Like, all right, cool. We can do that. That's fine. But if you're making this a football conversation, this is obviously the same thing. Like if Trevor had a rough O-line, CJ Stroud has a rough O-line. But then a lot of the Texans fans are making these same arguments this season, saying, "Well, yeah, the Texans O-line is garbage." Yeah, the Texans O-line was garbage last season. Did you forget that you guys had like against the Jaguars the first time they played, they were missing like 3 starting offensive linemen. You guys were playing 6 You were playing 6 lineman sets. You were playing a tight end, an offensive tackle at tight end that game. That happened just last season, and everybody was raving about CJ Stroud and how he was playing despite this bad offensive line. The fall off isn't because of the offensive line. The fall off is because of Bobby Slovic and CJ are not playing well together right now with their counters to what defenses are now doing to them. So that's where this thing gets interesting. But this has nothing to do with just the O-line. The O-line is bad as it always was.
Wow. What had happened was, and in fairness to the Texans, they've had some significant receiver health issues. Stephon Diggs missing time, Nico Collins missing times. What's that?
I said just like last year, though.
You feel like don't you feel? I feel like it was more this year.
No. They had the injuries the last like 5 weeks of the season. With they lost Tank Dell last season, and at one point they lost Nico also late last year.
Right. Well, it would have been just about this time they had those injuries, though, right? Last year. Like they've been dealing with it throughout this season so far, is what I mean. It feels like it's more this year. I
got you. So they've gone through the main part of the season with the injuries that they had basically the end of last year. I said going into the season, I'm like, hey, man, look at CJ Stroud's last 5 games. If they struggle it's going to be because of a similar situation. Like they struggled in the playoffs. They struggled in the last like 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And I'm just like, that didn't look good. And they were like, well, yeah, but he was missing Tank, and Nico was injured, all these things. I'm like, yeah, but that's the NFL. People get injured. That's going to happen. You got to figure out a ways to play at least reasonably solid offense to win in this league, or teams are going to figure you out. And frankly, that's kind of what it has been. Like they know that CJ was a Nico. He was a Nico merchant. Basically, he was just loading up on that one guy. And when that one guy ain't there, we got problems countering. We have problems with answers.
A Nico nepotist, if you will. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And he's struggling. That's really what it's coming down to right now. And that's not just, again, CJ. That's also Bobby, because Slovic was good about having counters and coming to the line of scrimmage and coming out of the huddle with answers for CJ. And that's not been the case this year, even though they've actually had a running game, which is just crazy to me. They improved in some ways and still got less answers, because defenses also knows exactly what he wants to do. He wants to eat between those hashes, unlike a lot of other teams. Well, actually, very much like San Francisco in that way. Want to eat between the hashes, and teams are not just giving it away.
Yeah, well, and much like the Texans, the Niners have also this year been plagued with injury issues. And, well, look how it's affected them to this point. How about that, right? By the way, just had a just in come over here. Daniel Jones is now officially backing up Sam Darnold in Minnesota.
Well, I think he's on the practice squad, didn't they say? Which
I'll put it
for
this
the moment,
way.
at least.
I'll put it this way. He may not officially be backing him up today. Maybe I'm putting that wrong. He's signed with the Vikings. I'll put it that way. It's only a matter of time, one would think, before he's backing up Sam Darnold full-time here, right? So,
I mean, sure. I mean, if anything, he's a backup running back at this point.
Wow. Of course, you're saying that having been hurt before, watching Daniel Jones snarf up over 100 yards against the Jacksonville Jaguars in 22, but that's a whole other question.
Because Jaguars. Yeah, because Jaguars. If the quarterback can't throw, you better believe he's going to run for 100 yards against your defense, because that's what we do.
But this is the part where I obligatorily pay tribute to Falaransu Fatukasi. The Jags fan base and the Duval Devout miss you dearly, even though they don't realize it.
They will not admit it.
That's right. They'll never publicly admit it. With that in mind, we're at that part of the show. Travis, what do you think about the game? Listen, I know it's not. I know you want them to lose, but what is it you think is going to actually happen?
Well, there's still the question. I can't even say conversation. There's still the question of whether or not Trevor Lawrence is going to play before this team is mathematically eliminated. And today is Wednesday, before the team has actually had their second practice of the week. It's a coin flip, in my personal opinion, whether or not he actually plays. Like, I think he probably could play and maybe even should play. So let's just go with the assumption that Trevor Lawrence plays.
Because that's much more interesting.
If Trevor Lawrence does not play, this is a wrap. Let's just call that what it is. It's over.
Right.
But if Trevor Lawrence does play, I think the Jaguars at least have a fighting chance to win. But realistically, I still think they'll lose. Because, I mean, you're talking against Houston, who did absolutely lose against a fighting Titans team just last week, but also played the Lions very close. I mean, 5 turnover game the week before that, beat the brakes off the Cowboys, a week after that, against the Jaguars team who hasn't looked very feisty since that Vikings game. But they are also coming off the bye week, so maybe they'll have a little bit of refreshing. You don't know how that's going to work out. At the end of the day, I'm probably just going to lean with this is a dead locker room. This is maybe not a lost locker room, but these are guys who are just trying to milk this thing until the end of the season gets here. And that's my personal opinion. That's not something I'm hearing. That's just my view of my take of the situation. And I'm probably going to say that the Texans are going to win this thing by 10. I'm going 34-24.
Wait, you got the Jaguars scoring 24? Sorry. No.
This is with Trevor playing. That's why.
Of course, and obviously with Trevor playing, I think 24 is a good number on your part. I might kick it to 27 to obligatorily give the appropriate credit to Cam Little. I think he can get 2 field goals out of that too. So give me 27 for the Jags. I got 38 for the Texans. I think they're going to have at least one short field touchdown based on a mistake. Whether it's Trevor's or not will be yet to be seen. I do feel like C.J. Stroud is going to make mistakes as well, simply because the Jags are best on defense where the Texans are weakest. That being said, I think the Texans have enough to stop the interior defensive line. I think this is a day where the plays that Laramie Tunsil loses, which will be few because he's good, that's the plays where both the defensive ends will be able to attack Stroud and get that sack, maybe cause a turnover. Not to say that will be the entire game, but the biggest defensive moments by the Jags will be that. I don't think that's a tough stretch to believe. But yeah, I'm saying 38-27 Texans myself. I guess what Travis and I are both saying is take the over. Yeah, with that in mind, that'll wrap up this edition of The Dive. So if you got something else.
Just that since I'm missing the press conference because, I love you guys just that much. Doug Peterson is actually actively speaking with the press right now, says Trevor Lawrence is going to practice again today. He had a successful Monday, practicing. He's going to have a little bit heavier of a workload, but Matt Jones would also get some first team reps just to make sure that, he's adequately prepared. And also Travis Etienne and Tank Bixby will both be full go in practice today. So that leads up to their process for also potentially playing, but we'll see how that lands.
So what disturbs me the most is the lack of movement of CJ Beathard in the depth chart. I don't know why anybody still believes in Mac Jones at this point, but that's just me. So there you go. No, good drop in. Now you know why exactly we were talking as if Trevor Lawrence will play, because it looks like he will. So we'll leave that at that. But Travis, tell the world where you can be found.
Hey, I can be found on all the socials. Travis D. Holmes, X, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, all of them, man. And yeah, definitely hit up, more importantly, BigCatCountry.com. All your breaking Jacksonville Jaguar news, coverage of the press conferences. Again, we'll give you our takeaways from the game and the rewatches of the games.
You mean you actually watch the football game? Wow, my friend Emmanuel Ocho says you don't have to do that.
Matter of fact, most of the fans are telling me I shouldn't be doing that at this point for my sanity. But you know what? Let me help you out. I will be your teal glasses. You don't even got to watch the game. Just read the recap. BigCatCountry.com, and I'll tell you everything that you missed. There you go. Save it as your favorite.
Doctor will thank you. Yes, fewer heart attacks.
Yeah. Save your Sunday. You ain't got to watch. You can just read the recap, and we'll be okay. There you go. That's how we do this. How about you, sir? Where can you be found?
Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Stupid peer pressure. At the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my writings with the Fans First Sports Network on both the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Orlando Magic. Messing around, winning a few games here in a row, still undefeated at home, Travis Holmes. Listen, maybe you don't want to watch games, but there's some games here I want to watch. It's just basketball.
There you go.
And of course, my work with the Black and Gold Banneret, of course, on Black Friday, they head into the Bounce House one last time this year for senior night, hosting the Utah Utes. I will not be on site covering that game but Don Struble will be there. So make sure you check out Night Shift Live on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. And my work as well covering men's and women's basketball for the Black and Gold Banneret and the Night Shift podcast, which will drop every Tuesday, also on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel, as well as on all the pod catchers. Well, you'll also find this bad boy on your pods if you weren't able to get to the video this week. So, or any week for that matter, for this edition or other editions of the Duval Dive.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, I'll give Robert some shouts. He jumps in here too late. Both lines of scrimmage. That's where you got to win. They need to focus on that.
Yes.
Whether it's the game or the draft, he's right. So for my good friend Travis G. Holmes, my personal champion of Big Cat Country, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. And until next time, everyone, class dismissed.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, all you out there among the Duval divide.